Welcome in, guys, to another video. This is Jason, bringing you another video with Let the Torah Speak. Today I want to kind of look at a very important statement that Yeshua made, where he says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you." I want to kind of provide some context to that today, learning from a Hebraic standpoint and what would he have meant in the first century setting when this statement was made. It's some very powerful information, and I know that the Most High has been leading me to talk about these things a little bit more, so I want to go ahead and get right into that idea. So what did Yeshua meant by seek ye first the kingdom? So Matthew 6:33, Yeshua makes a powerful statement that I think we have missed the idea around this text. So let's give some background information first on this text. So Matthew 6 is a continuation of Matthew 5. A lot of people don't know that because they're split into chapters. We read them as if they're separate, but Matthew 5 and 6 is one idea together. Okay, so to provide context for Matthew 6, we first need to look at what Yeshua is talking about in Matthew 5, and it's very important. Okay, now number two, in Matthew 5:17, Yeshua starts off by expounding on a saying from Isaiah 41:21, and it reads, "The Lord desires his servants' vindication, that he may magnify and glorify his teaching." So he's talking about the servant. This servant is going to magnify whoever that servant is and glorify his teachings. So let's see if we can see Yeshua upholding Isaiah 41, right? So here's why Yeshua makes this statement, okay? Check this out. "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, nor the least stroke of the pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called the least in the kingdom. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom." Okay? "For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and teachers, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." Okay. So let's focus on the first statement. "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter nor the least stroke of the pen." Okay. This statement can go unnoticed. Okay. And we don't realize what Yeshua is actually talking about here. So let's provide some context. What he's saying is that these are jots and tittles, are the crowns of the wording in the Hebrew alphabet, right? Yeshua is actually speaking about the very depth and intimacy of the Torah laws here. We don't get that because when you read it in the English, you don't see that he's actually talking about the crowning of the word. You wouldn't get that from the English concept. So we would have to look at, okay, what does he mean in the Hebrew context? Okay, so Yeshua is speaking about a very deep and intimate understanding of the Torah laws here. This is something only a learned Hebrew rabbis would have intimate knowledge of. Something only a rabbis would have intimate knowledge of. Okay, and that's important for us to know. Now, the next part. "For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter in the kingdom of heaven." Okay, Yeshua in this instance is telling us to the law, the Pharisees understanding and the practice of the law leads to their righteousness. Is that, the law that the Pharisees are practicing, by keeping it, is leading to their righteousness. Notice he did not say they were unrighteous. He said that your righteousness needs to exceed their righteousness, meaning that they are righteous. And what is he talking about? He's talking about the actual understanding of the actual Torah. Remember, he just mentioned previously about this jot and tittle idea, right? So it's talking about this righteousness that comes from studying the Torah, right? So he is saying your righteousness need to exceed that of the Pharisees, which means Yeshua must have held them in high regards to insinuate that they're righteous. Okay, and there's a lot of information out there around this. If you actually look at what was going on during his time, there's a lot of different things going on during Yeshua time. A lot of turmoil, and the people need a hope. So there's a lot of things going on here. But what he's trying to reestablish is we need to get back to the teachings. Okay, that's why he's putting a precipice on the teachings right now. Now, check this out. How do we know this? So we can see from this text that Yeshua is clearly stating that the law has some precedence. Clearly, he's stating that. And the law itself must deal in righteousness according to the Hebrew idea of righteousness. Okay, so what does righteousness mean in Hebrew? Well, the word for righteousness in Hebrew is tzedek, and it means justice. Okay, and whenever you think of justice when it comes to the Most High, he always mentioned it in the realm of his actual teachings. That's how he mentioned it. Okay, Torah does not mean law; it means teachings. Okay, there's a different word for law in Hebrew. It's not Torah. It just means teachings, right? So let's go ahead and look at this. Now, we can clearly see that it is the Torah that makes one righteous. Okay, and give me a chance to explain to you what I mean by make a person righteous. See, when we think of righteousness, we think of not sinning. That is incorrect. That's not what righteousness is, according to the Torah. It's not what it is. Righteousness is being in right standings. Will you fall? Yes. The Torah says that a righteous man falleth 7 times, but he get back up. So obviously the righteous man will be a sinner, but he get back up and continues to pursue. That's what makes him righteous. Okay. When we are inside of the Torah walls, the Most High protects us, right? And by following them leads to uprightness. Okay. As a well-learned rabbi, Yeshua would know that this was the case from his Hebraic culture. A lot of times when we approach the scriptures, we're approaching the scriptures from a Christian-centric ideology, which is great inside of the realm of Christianity. But when we're looking at the person in the text, Yeshua, when we're looking at his disciples, Shaul, when we're looking at these people, Kepha, when we're looking at them, they're all Aramaic Hebrew men. They're not Christians. The idea of Christianity didn't exist then. So we have to go back to their culture to see what it is that it would mean in their culture in their time. Right? Now check this out. So some things to remember when we are engaging the text. This is key. It's very important to remember this. All right? Yeshua would not know what a New Testament is because they did not exist in his time. If you start talking to Yeshua, he come now and be like, what a New Testament says, he's going to look at you crazy. The reason why is because the New Testament didn't exist in his time. These books was written 200-300 years. They were compiled 200-300 years after Yeshua was off the scene. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You'll see a pattern of that in history. When you look at Alexander the Great, there's things about Alexander the Great, but most people don't know that writings about him didn't come about until hundreds of years after he died. So anyway, the statement number 2, the Tanakh was the whole word of the Most High in Yeshua time. We have to understand that. The Tanakh, the 5 books of Moses, the writings and the prophets and the oral law was the whole Bible in Yeshua time. That's what they would have been going off. All the prophecies and everything come from the oral traditions and the Bible. Sometimes we try to separate them, but they're not separated. The oral traditions and the Bible go hand in hand. Okay, so in Yeshua time, you would be talking from here or from the Old Testament I'm sorry, you will be talking from either the Old Testament Tanakh or from the oral law, right? And number three, when Yeshua and the Talmudians were quoting scriptures, they were quoting sayings and concepts from the Tanakh and from the Torah. That's where they were. That's where they were quoting them from. I mean, from the Tanakh and from the oral law. When they were making these statements, they were quoting them from those teachings. Okay. Now, check this out. What we want to look at here is the Greek translation is something that is very key here with this Greek translation, okay? Because the Greeks were a abstract people. That's why they use terms like righteousness. They use terms like faith. But those are not Hebraic concepts in the way that they are transcribed. You got to understand it's a cultural thing. So the culture of the Greeks was a little bit different in this time than it was from the Hebraic understanding of faith, and maybe I'll do a video on that one too. Now, the word that we're going to look at here, we're going to focus in on righteousness because this is something very powerful. So, number one, righteousness is a noun and it's feminine in Greek, right? It means justice, where in Hebrew it's masculine. Okay, so Dekal Yos Une, right? It is what it would be in Greek. It means righteousness and justice. Now, look at the usage. This is key. This is very important. Look at the usage. Usually, if not always, in a Jewish atmosphere. That is important. That is very, very, very important. Because what we're seeing here is that this idea is a Jewish idea. So we have to go to the Judean concept of righteousness to determine what he meant by seek the kingdom and his righteousness. What does that mean? Well, let's go ahead and look at what does righteousness mean in Yeshua's time, right? Now, check this out. Here's what you're going to see. So what we see here is that the word was an exclusive Hebrew context word. So in order to understand this idea, we would need to know the Jewish atmosphere of this word and how it was used in this context, okay? We see from previous scriptures that the reference to things that dealt with the Most High and the idea of righteousness, they were all associated with his Torah and his teachings, right? They're all associated with his Torah and his teachings. So, check this out. In closing, Yeshua was telling us to seek the kingdom of the Most High and his Torah, and these things will be added unto you. Now, Torah means teachings, okay? David wrote this about the teachings of the Most High. And this is how the Hebrews thought of the teachings of the Most High. It says, the precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandments of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true. They are righteous altogether. It is the Torah, the teachings of the Lord, that one practice that subscribes to righteousness. So when Yeshua was telling them to seek ye first the kingdom, he was telling them, okay, you need to seek the kingdom and its righteousness, and these things will be added to you. So he's saying you need to seek the kingdom. What is God's idea of kingdom? And then you need to make sure that that idea of kingdom is matching with the Torah. They go hand in hand. It's the same command he gave to Israel. I'm going to make you a kingdom of priests. Priest means messenger. It is likened unto a person that goes out and tell a message. That's what the original Hebrews were supposed to do. They were supposed to introduce the world to the Most High. That was their job. Okay, and Yeshua is telling them this is the job we have to get back to. Okay, we have to get back to introducing the world to the Most High and his teachings from the Torah. And we can see that with things that Yeshua was doing during his time. For example, if we go to Matthew 5, okay, let's just pull that up while we're here. We can actually pull that up now So let's go to Matthew 5. Show you something. Matthew 5, the NIV. Okay. Now, here's what Yeshua is saying. He says in Matthew 5, okay? Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill. This word here in Hebrew, fulfill, means to establish. It means to enlighten or to magnify. As we saw in Isaiah 41:21, it is his job to magnify them. How do we know he's magnifying them? He goes directly into the Hebraic concept of magnification. Directly after making this statement, he goes directly into this Hebraic concept of magnification. He says, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago. He's magnifying the Torah now. He said, you've heard this teaching, but this is what the teaching actually means. You've heard this teaching. This is what the teaching actually means. Okay? And look at the things that he's expounded on. Murder. Murder is one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill. He goes on to expound on that. Adultery. One of the 10 commandments. Divorce. As a result of adultery. One of the commandments. Oaths. Thou shalt not bear false witness. So what he's doing is he's literally taking these commandments and he's expounding on them. He's magnifying them. So that's very, 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 very powerful stuff that's taking place here in the scriptures. Now, what you'll see is that whenever the Torah is mentioned, the righteousness of the Most High is also mentioned right alongside it. Now, let's go ahead and look at, before we end this, let's go ahead and look at Psalms 19. Very powerful. Very powerful. Psalms 19. Okay. One of my favorite Psalms. That and 119. Two of my favorite Psalms and the text. So Psalms 19. Check this out. Psalms 19 and 9 says the precepts, matter of fact, Psalms 19:8, the teachings of the Lord is perfect, renewing life. You see how this says teachings, but if we go over to, let's just go over here to what we would call the Greek or English Bible, it says this. It says, the law of the Lord is perfect. But that's not what law means. In Hebrew, in its actual context, it means teachings. So it's saying the teachings of the Lord is perfect, renewing life. The decrees of the Lord are enduring, making the simple wise. The precepts of the Lord are just, rejoicing the heart. The instructions of the Lord is loosest, making the eyes light up. So it's telling us that the Torah is actually a lamp to our eyes. It makes our lives light up, which makes us a lamp. Yeshua talks about that. He talks about that in Matthew 5. Can a lamp be hidden? He's talking about the Torah. If you keep the Torah, if you practice the Torah and you practice these teachings, the Most High tells us that this is going to be a lamp unto us. All right. It's not a religious thing. It's more of a relationship thing. It's a command that he had given when, and I don't want to say command because command make you think that it's something that you have to do. But the thing is, if you desire to get closer, this is an idea that you're going to run into. So we see that these precepts are perfect. We see that it renews life. We see these things, and Yeshua mentions these things too. You know, so when he was talking about seek ye first the kingdom, he's saying to seek the decrees and the righteous standing through the Torah with the Most High. That's what he's talking about. Okay. Peace once again to the family. I hope this helped. to expound on what it was talking about when he says seek ye first the kingdom. Is something to really look into, and get into the Hebraic understanding, because it brings so much more light to the text. And we get to see how Yeshua, the ancestors, would have looked at it in their time. Okay. Thank you guys for listening, for watching. Please like, subscribe, show support. I definitely want to continue to give little nuggets, just so that my passion become your passion, and you can be able to love and search the Most High, just like I do. Be blessed.